So we are talking about living the science of minds. That's our topic for the whole year, actually. And I'm super, super excited about what we're going to be doing going forward. Last week, I shared a great, big, huge vision for this center and what we're going to be doing going forward in our community and how we're looking to transform lives of people coming out of prison, and the wellness center that we want to have here. I mean, it's a huge, huge dream. It was scary, really, almost to speak it. But what I've decided to do going forward for this year, as far as the rest of the curriculum, what I'm going to teach on Sunday mornings, is all about dream building. Oh, that sounds better, doesn't it? You all hear me better now?
Yes.
Did you hear what I was saying before?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, we're going to talk about dream building. Dream building. I am pulling together curriculum from some of the best teachers that I've been exposed to and adding my own stuff to it and taking us through a process of identifying our dreams all the way through to manifesting. And the reason I'm doing this, of course, is because we have such a big dream here. And I want for all of us to be engaged in that process of getting in touch with our own dreams and seeing the manifestations in our own lives, because that is what is going to build this center and this congregation. And we'll all be doing these practices and learning these principles in the laboratory of our own lives. So I'm super excited about what we're going to be doing here at the center. So I'll start with this. Every dream starts with something. Every dream starts with something. And I don't know how many of you have heard this quote before, but it's one of my favorite ones. One day Alice, this is from Alice in Wonderland. One day Alice came to a fork in the road and saw a Cheshire cat in a tree. To which she asked the cat, "Which road do I take?" He responded, his response was a question, which was, "Where do you want to go?" She answers, "I don't know." Then said the cat, "It doesn't matter." Right? If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter which way you go. Right?
Yeah.
Makes total sense. So what is the first step in dream building? What do you think that might be? To know where you want to go. Exactly. You have to know where you want to go. You have to have some kind of destination in mind. So here's what a few of my favorite teachers have said about this. How many people know Stephen Covey? Know who that was, Stephen Covey. Right? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. How did he say it? Begin with the end in mind. Know your destination. That is your starting point, actually, is to know where you want to go to. You don't get into your car in the morning and say, "Oh, I wonder where my car is going to take me today. Take me somewhere." Right? We don't do that. We know where we're going, right? All right. Another one of my favorite authors, M.K. Mueller. And I started my ministry with the work of M.K. Mueller, with 8 to Great. The very first step in that process, it's a process for finding hope in your life again. A process like if you do A, B, C, and D, you're going to get to that place of hopefulness and gratitude no matter where you're starting from. And the very first step in her process is get the picture. In other words, get the vision, catch the vision for your life. James Allen, who wrote As a Man Thinketh, says it this way: the vision that you glorify in your mind, the ideal that you enthrone in your heart, this you will build your life by. This you will become. That tells us to have a big vision for our lives, right? Right? We don't want to settle here, because the vision that you glorify, the vision that you give your attention to, is what you're going to become. And then Mary Morrissey, another one of my favorite teachers. You cannot get to your dream, you must come from it. Isn't that awesome? You must come from your dream. So that means you know where you're headed. You know where you're going. You imagine yourself there. You see it, you feel it, and you come from that place. Now dreams, that's what we're talking about today. Dreams are big. What do I mean by dreams are big? Dreams are, they're bold, they're innovative, and they're grand. How many people have goals? Raise your hand if you have goals for your life. Wonderful. Goals are a wonderful thing to have, but goals are not the same as dreams. right? Dreams are where it's just so big, you don't even know how the heck you're going to get there. And it scares the crap out of you. If you have what you think is your dream and it's not a little bit scary to you, it's probably not a dream. It's probably more like a goal. What do we call it? We say goals are SMART, right? They're specific, they're measurable, SMA, they're attainable, yes. R is what? Realistic? Realistic. And then T is time-based, right? So that's what goals are. Dreams are something different. And we all have them, you know, we all, at least when we start out life, let me put it that way. When we start out, we all have these great big dreams, and then things seem to happen to us. You know, I've been teaching this stuff for a long time, and I've taught it to kids as well as adults, you know, everything in between. And I was shocked when I was teaching this stuff to kids in middle school, and we'd start with that 8 to great process, get the picture, you know, let's talk about your dreams. And some kids would say, I don't have any dreams. You know, can you imagine a kid at 13 or 14 saying already, I don't have any dreams? Why is that? Because, you know, life starts to smack us around a little bit. You know, if you've been around for any length of time, you know that there are challenges that happen in life. And I think this is a very, very popular kind of paradigm that exists in the world and has existed for a long time. It's this idea of being a victim of circumstance, right? Well, I can't have my dream. I can't do this because I don't have enough money, or I'm not healthy enough, or I'm not young enough, right? We have all of these reasons. I'm a victim of circumstance. You don't know what happened to me, right? You don't know the traumas and the dramas that I've been through. I can't have that dream. That's not possible for me anymore. So you just put it on the back burner and you forget about it. Right? Because life happens. And we see ourselves as victims of circumstance. But you see, what is a paradigm? You know what a paradigm is? It's a belief system, exactly. It's a way of looking at the world. It's a way of viewing not just the world, but it's a perspective. It's a particular perspective. And what we're talking about here is switching up our paradigms. The motto, if you want to call it a motto for Centers for Spiritual Living, is change your thinking, change your life. This idea that we are victims of circumstance is a paradigm that many hold, that is it's part of that collective unconscious that we all kind of have. Even if we've been in this teaching for a while, there's probably some of this going on that we are wanting to release. And that's going to be part of the work that we do this year together, is releasing this paradigm of I'm a victim of circumstance. Because we know that we are not victims of circumstance. We are the creators of our circumstance. Now, you may not want to own that. If you're in a space in your life right now where things aren't working so well, you might say, well no, but you don't know. This isn't my fault. This just happened. This just happened to me. It's you know, I have this genetic profile, or I had these parents, or I had this situation happen, and it's just how it is for me. Right? But we are the creators, actually, of our circumstance. We think that if we could just have if we could have the relationship we want, if I could just have the right body, if I could just have the money that I want, if I could just have those things, then I could do the stuff I want to do, then I will be happy. That's how most people are living life, from the outside in, allowing the outside circumstances to determine what they think is possible in their lives. Would you agree? Yeah. Okay. That's backwards. You see, if you make the decision, I want to be happy. Right? That's what the choice that you make. I'm going to be happy. Then it is much more likely that you will have the things that you want to have, that you can do the things that you want to do, and you're no longer pushed and pulled by the things that are going on around you, because you have that centered place. And that no matter what else may be going on around you, you can still be peaceful. You can still be joyous. You can still be happy. So we're going to change this paradigm. Now, you may think, You don't have those limits anymore. Maybe you've been in this teaching for a long time and you're like, yeah, I can create my reality. I know that already. Well, but maybe not. Maybe not. Lessons from fleas and elephants. Anyone know where I might be going with this? Yeah. Oh. Okay, some of you do? All right. Do you know how we train fleas? Anybody ever heard of this? Okay, if you take a flea, now how high does a flea jump? Like really, really high, right? If it was a human being, I think I read that they can jump up to like 100 times their body length. That would be the equivalent of you and I jumping the length of a football field. Imagine that. That's what they do. So what you do, you put the flea in a jar and you put a top on it. So when the flea jumps up with that force to go 100 times its body length, it hits the top and it goes back down. Well, that probably didn't feel real good. I would imagine, I mean, I'm not a flea, but you would think you go with that force and hit the top, that would not feel good. There would be some pain. So anyway, it keeps trying, and it keeps hitting the top and hitting the top. And eventually it says, that hurts. I'm not going to go that high anymore. So then it starts to go just below the height of the top. So you could unscrew the top, and the flea will no longer jump out of the jar because it has been conditioned to be in that space. Isn't that interesting? Elephants, very similar. Now, elephants are wild animals. We see them in circuses and we think they're docile, they're they're not. They're wild animals. And what do they do to train elephants? Is they take them when they're babies and they tie, I've seen it with chains and I've seen it with rope. And they tie one of their legs and they put it in a stake. They put the stake in the ground. And so when the elephant goes to pull, it can't get away. So they train it from the time that they're babies. And eventually, they can just put a rope on there, just something that would not hold the elephant if it knew what its strength really was, its capacity. And when it pulls, it feels that little tug, and it stays in place. All they have to do is put a rope around its neck or its leg, and it knows its place. Now you think this creature that is, I don't even know how many tons an elephant is, that a little stake like that would hold it in place? Right? It's much more capable, it has much more capacity, but it no longer knows that about itself because it's been conditioned to respond in a certain way. And this is what happens to us, right? We get conditioned by life from the time we're teeny tiny of all these things that we can't do. Don't you know no one in our family has been to college? Who do you think you are to want that dream? Right? Or travel, or own a business. Wow, no one in my family ever had a business. Is that even possible? Right? This is what people are thinking because they've been conditioned by life. We're like the fleas and the elephants. We have so much more capacity than what we give ourselves credit for, than what we think is actually possible. Now, there are paradigms around success. There are 3 necessary ingredients for success. This is a paradigm that people believe. What do you think is one of those? What have you heard? What do you need? If you want to have a business, what do you need? Money. Money. Hello. You need money for success. What's the next thing? How about this one? Connections. How many of you heard that? Right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. This is another part of the success paradigm. The last one, the market, has to be ideal in order for this business to grow or whatever. These are common ideas, right? This is what we think about business. I need to have money, I need to have the right connections, and the timing has to be right in the economy and so on and so forth. This is a paradigm that I would say probably 95, 99% of people believe, yes? You've all heard it. I want to share with you, a very clear, I think, example from history that shows this is not so. How many people know this name, Samuel Pierpont Langley? You know where I'm going then. Okay, so that's one person who knows who this gentleman was. He was well educated. He had money when he started. Now we're talking in the I think it was 1915. Maybe it was 1917. At any rate, $50,000 was a lot of money back in that time. He was director of the Smithsonian Institute. He had connections at Harvard. The market was ideal. In fact, this gentleman was working on a flying machine. He was working on a flying machine. At the same time, these guys were working on a flying machine. Now, how many of you know those names? Orville and Wilbur Wright. Now, let me tell you about Orville and Wilbur. They never graduated high school. Right? Mr. Langley had the education. These guys didn't graduate high school. They had very little money. And they had no connections. They had no connections. So as they're testing their flying machines, there were several people working on this project at the same time. Langley was the only one that was being subsidized by the government. And he had his flying machine go up a week before the Wright brothers did, and it crashed, and it was a terrible embarrassment for him. A huge, I mean, they had, the newspaper was there, and they were photographers, in a day where there were very few pictures taken. It was a big deal, and it failed miserably. The Wright brothers, however, we know that they were the ones that were successful. What do you think was the difference?
Spirit and drive.
Spirit and drive. Spirit and drive, absolutely, Eddie. That was exactly what the difference was. You see, the Wright brothers had a mission to change the world. They wanted to make a big impact on the world. Whereas Mr. Langley was more interested in becoming famous, in becoming well known, in becoming one of those people that is sought after for their connections, if you know what I mean. His interest was more, apparently, was more about himself than it was about the bigger goal. Because once the Wright brothers were successful, he dropped his project altogether. Now, if he was really interested in doing something that was bigger, something that was going to last beyond him, he might have stuck it out a little bit more. Maybe he could have improved on what they had created. But his interest was more self-serving. And he died very sad after a series of strokes and whatnot, very miserable. So, we talk about money, connections, about the market being right. Right? The market was right for the Wright brothers as well, but they didn't have the connections or the education. So there you go. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. It's one of my favorite quotes from Eleanor Roosevelt. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. I love this quote as well, George Bernard Shaw. He says, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they create them. This is what we're talking about in this movement, in this New Thought movement, is that we are in a place in history now. We have the understanding, we have the know-how to know what our power is. That we are at a point where we realize that, hey, we are conscious creators in this universe. We are creating with this power and presence that lives and moves and breathes through each one of us, and we get to create. Right? We are not the victims of circumstance. So what kind of future do you want to create for yourself? I know what I want to create for this center. I know what I want to create in this community. So we create the mental picture for what it is that we want to see. Not living in fear or in doubt of what we don't want to see. Because we know that where we focus our attention is what is going to grow in our perception. So we realize that we are creating our circumstance. Ernest Holmes said it this way: never limit your view of life by any past experience. Right? Past is not precedent. Your future does not have to be determined by what has happened in your past. The possibility of life is inherent within the capacity to imagine what life is. Let me say that again. The possibility of life is inherent within the capacity to imagine what life is. We are to use this capacity that we have for imagination. And that's where all of the possibility comes from in our lives. That's why kids are so good at it, because they still have that imagination. Right? We should be encouraging our kids to read fantasy and to play outside. Just playing, just being kids. So they use their imagination and don't ever lose that. So it's not a question of failing or succeeding. It's simply a question of sticking to an idea until it becomes a reality. Right? We're not to limit our point of view by any past experience, but live in the possibility of what we can create. So I'm inviting you. Right? We're starting this now. We've set the groundwork already in the ideas that we've been talking about for the past couple of months. The idea of God, like what is this thing we call God, what we call the universe, right? The source of everything that is. And then what's our place in that, right? We are part of that presence. We are the eyes and ears and mouth and feet and hands of God itself. Now use our creative imagination to say, what is the future that I want to live into? What is my destination? And we've been talking about this. I think we opened up the year with the idea, or with a guided meditation, where I asked you to project yourself to your last day. Right? We will all face this moment. Every one of us is going to have that moment where we lay our heads on the pillow for the last time. If you could project yourself, not to be morbid or sad or anything, but project yourself to that time and imagine, now ask yourself the question, was my life a success? Right? Put yourself on that bed and look back over your life and say, was my life a success? And you'll have one of two answers. Your answer will be either yes, my life was a success, or you'll have this kind of feeling in your gut of no, it wasn't. So if your life was a success, ask yourself why. What made my life a success? And you will know that that is what you are here to do. Now, if you're looking back and you're saying, no, my life wasn't a success, then what is it that kept it from being a success? And that will also give you your answer, to know what it is that is important for you. Either way you get it. And the good news is that just like Scrooge on Christmas morning, you still have time. We're still here, right? And who knows how long you've got. You may have 5 years, you may have 50 years, you may have longer than that. But take the time to establish your destination, and that's a way to find out. So I'm inviting you, each and every one of you, to pick something in your life that you want to work on this year. A dream. Get in touch with your dreams. It may be something that's physical, right? That was my goal for last year. My goal for my dream for last year. I'll say it was a dream too. I mean, you could say it was a goal because there was a number that I had in mind for where I wanted to be weight-wise. But it felt like a dream for me because I've been overweight my whole life. I wasn't one of those people who was a small kid, right, that then gained weight later in years. I was always the big kid. You know, I was the last kid picked for the teams. I was not athletic at all and never comfortable in my own skin. So last year, my dream was to feel comfortable and confident in my own self.
You look gorgeous, huh?
Thank you. And once I got really committed to it, it started to get easy. You see, all of the pieces started to fall in place. I had a wonderful coach who's sitting in the back over there. I did some classes that allowed me to release, and I did the work. It wasn't just a dreaming thing where I dream about it and let me vision myself thin and sit on my couch, right? There was work that had to be done. So that was my dream for last year. My dream for this year is to see this center grow to what I think it can be, to engage a community in this idea of peace building. And we don't have to be at the mercy of what's going on in society. You know, we can read all that stuff, we can see it, but we know that in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, that we are the master. Right? I get to decide, you get to decide, I'm going to live from a place of possibility. I'm not living from circumstance anymore. I'm living from the dreams that are within my own heart. and not listening to what people outside say is possible for me, because no one else knows. No one else knows your possibility better than you do. So I'm inviting you, look at each area of your life, be it your physical health, be it your relationships. Maybe that's the thing that you want for this year, right? Is to have that relationship that is pulling at your heart, that you know is there for you. Maybe it's to have an intimate relationship with someone else, with a life partner. Maybe it's to have a better relationship with your children. Maybe it's to make more friends. I don't know what that is, but you know what it is. Maybe the goal, or maybe your dream, is to find that passion, your vocation. And so you don't feel like you're going to work every day. No, you get up in the morning and you get to go to that place where they pay you to do what you love to do. Wouldn't that be amazing? Right? Maybe that's your dream for this year. So we've got your health, we've got your relationships, we've got your vocation. What's the last thing you think? Finances. There you go. Freedom. Time and money freedom. Maybe that's the dream for you. I caught myself again saying it this year. I had someone at my house doing some work, and I said, making the excuse, right? We either have time or money, never seem to have both. And as soon as the words flew out of my mouth, I thought, what did I just say? What did I just claim for myself? I can have time or money, not both. I will not say that ever again. Now I'm affirming I have time, freedom to do the things I want, and I have the money to do what I want. How many people would like that in their lives? Okay. All right. So we've got some ideas floating here, right? I want you to go home and think about this, and we're going to spend the next 10 months helping you build your dream. How many of you are up for that?
Yes.
All right. And as you see your dreams start to come true, I know that the dreams here, that we will see them come to manifestation. So you are invited. Right? Take this opportunity, whether you're sitting here in this room or you're watching at home. If you can't get here, watch it online.
Go home and rewatch it online.
Go home and rewatch it. Thanks, Shanna. We're doing podcasts now as well. Yes, podcasts. Yes. So we'll make sure that you know how to access all of that. And stay on board, because we're in for a wild ride. It's going to be a great adventure.